Lobbies and Gentlegrams. Oh wait, sorry, wrong channel. Randy's and Gentle Garrisons. If you thought the fake news, CNN, crooked Hillary, the wicked left, they are the most evil figures in my life, you are sadly mistaken, alright? The most evil target that Trump has on his back right now is South Park. And if you thought episode 1 was bad, they're doubling down on the insanity 10 times harder in episode 2. So if you guys didn't know, Matt Stone, Trey Parker, the creators of South Park, they have dealt with headaches from the company that owns South Park right now, Paramount, and that's why we haven't seen new episodes in years. Paramount was merging with another company called Skydance, and they wanted to censor a bunch of old South Park episodes before putting it onto streaming. All the while, Paramount owns CBS. CBS had an interview with Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes that Trump didn't like, and when he got in office, he filed a lawsuit against Paramount for that episode, and that kind of messed with them being able to merge with Skydance, which then messed with South Park's ability to put out new episodes. Paramount caved in and gave Trump millions of dollars to settle this lawsuit, and finally South Park was able to release new episodes. And episode 1, right off the bat, they are begging Donald Trump to sue them again. They're going on an all-out war against MAGA, against Trump, his Glazers, and anything to do with Trump, alright? And episode 2 doubles down on some other insane things that weren't touched on in episode 1. So we're going to break down that full episode. But if you guys didn't see episode 1, essentially they had a Trump lookalike, not like a cartoon, like a real human walking around the desert in nothing but his boxers. And by the end of the episode, he falls on the ground. And up pops Trey's finger, which by the frame of the shot, you would think it's Trump's you-know-what. And obviously I can't show this. And at the same time, they animated Trump all throughout the episode with the same voice, same animation style as Saddam Hussein back in the day. And Saddam used to be dating Satan. And now it's Trump's turn to take a little swing at the Satan. And he's suing everyone left and right. He's canceling liberal talk shows. Everyone's got to accept Jesus Christ into their heart, into their schools. PC, politically correct principle, becomes power Christian principle, and it's obvious they'll be stretching and evolving this new Trump character all throughout the rest of the season, because if you guys didn't know, Trump used to be played by Mr. Garrison. Now it's like the real deal Trump. Or is it Saddam Hussein in disguise? Is the Epstein Island about to play a part in this? Let's find out. So this new episode, episode 2, starts off the way most South Park episodes do. Kyle and Wendy are upset over someone within the school saying horrible things about Jews and women. You think it's going to be Cartman, with Kyle saying that he went way too far this time with all his comments. And Cartman passes them in the hallway. He's all excited hearing that his friends are upset over someone being offensive. Because of course it has to be Cartman himself, right? Who else is making fun of Jewish people and women? Well, it wasn't actually Cartman. And he's sad it wasn't. And this picks up where we left off in the first episode of the season. Cartman's walking around all sad in a woke is dead t-shirt. He's mad that society, ever since Trump got in office, has transitioned away from the political correctness and more liberal views. But he's not upset because he thinks being woke is right. He's upset that everyone is now thinking like him. The insane talking points he makes about Kyle's people, about hippies, about Mexicans, women, you can find 100 podcasts about that stuff today. What makes him special if he can't be the one enraging people with his bigotry? That bigotry is now slowly becoming the norm. And I said this in my last video, I think this was Matt and Trey speaking through Cartman to say that South Park as a whole exists in this weird place right now. In a world where the more insulting, controversial, divisive comments you make, the more viewers and engagement you get. South Park, who has always been known for their brash, no-limit humor, but with their jokes ultimately always having some greater positive message, now it seems like the most outlandish stuff said on South Park could barely top the average talking head on Twitter. But back to episode 2. So it wasn't actually Cartman saying all this insulting stuff. It was Clyde. And this is significant because Clyde is like the most average, most basic character in the show, right? Remember the episode when all the girls made a list for the hottest guys in the school and Cartman somehow wasn't at the bottom of the list? Instead, it was Kyle and Clyde was at the top. And then I think it was Abraham Lincoln who came down to talk to Kyle about how looks don't matter. And because Clyde now thinks he's the best looking dude in the class, he's not actually putting in work to build his personality up to earn the affection of women. So he just becomes this bland, dry, basic character, right? So I think them picking Clyde to be the one who's insulting, who's stirring up all the controversy around the school with his new podcast, it's showing that that controversy has become the norm, right? Everyday people are gaining millions of followers by just saying stuff that's going to divide and upset one side of the political and social spectrum. Look at people like Nick Fuentes. That guy is making millions of dollars being a white supremacist. And it's not like he has any specific talent. It's not like he was running an office at one point. He has no experience in politics, but just because the climate we're living in, he's able to attract a massive following all across social media and make millions of dollars from it because of his bigoted takes. It's the norm now, and Clyde even kind of looks like Nick Fuentes. So why is Clyde saying all this horrible stuff? Well, Mr. Mackey calls him into his office to have a little talk, and Clyde explains that he's just trying to get his nut. He says verbatim, if you do a podcast and you say divisive stuff, then you could get your nut.
Well, Clyde, there's more important things than a nut, okay?
Nut, in this case, is like expenses. I never heard that term before, but for a 9-year-old Clyde, that consists of $60 a week on DoorDash, Netflix subscriptions, etc. So as they're having this meeting, PC Principal, Power Christian Principal, barges in and fires Mr. Mackey, claiming that the government is cutting back on unnecessary spending and that counseling is no longer necessary because the school has all the counseling they need through Jesus. So now how is Mackey supposed to get his nut? We'll get to that shortly, because first we see Clyde's podcast in action. It's called The Channel of Truth. Does that remind you of anything? Truth Social? In the most monotone, unenthusiastic voice possible, he's quoting things like white people are underprivileged or you can't trust Kyle's people. I think they're mocking Nick Fuentes here. Except I don't think Nick Fuentes typically debates people on his podcast. But on this podcast, Clyde brings in his guest to start debating, and that's none other than Cartman. And Cartman's pissed because Clyde is literally not just stealing his ideas, his beliefs, but Clyde is even stealing Cartman's catchphrases. Again, showing you how normal people right now are turning to the bigoted things that Cartman used to say in South Park, and it's kind of becoming the norm. Cartman says that hating women and hating Kyle's people is his shtick, but Clyde doesn't really care. He's more concerned with cutting the podcast to talking about his sponsor. His whole demeanor just seems like one of those, I don't know if you'd call them even right-wing, like Manosphere, whatever, Andrew Tate type talking head NPCs just reading off talking points. The most enthusiastic he gets is when he's advertising his supplement powder, the sponsor of his podcast. And how many of these Andrew Tate type Manosphere podcasters start plugging testosterone pills or protein powder in the middle of their shows? Like, South Park really hit the nail on the ball with this mock-up.
Knock it out, Clyde! You stole my idea! I don't know about stealing ideas, but I do know about some amazing supplement powders.
And the podcast ends with Clyde stealing Cartman's old slogan, respect my authority, with it now being respect Clyde's authority. And I like how the whole season so far has kind of made a lot of callbacks to the earlier seasons, like with the Satan character, the Saddam Hussein shtick. And speaking of that, the next scene cuts to Mackey, fresh on unemployment. He goes to the bank and starts talking to the teller, who's the famous "and it's gone" guy from the 2008 recession episode. And on a side note, I do feel like, aside from PC Principal and the strong woman character, in recent South Park history, they haven't really nailed any of these like really quotable, meme-worthy characters like they used to back in the day. Like, you're not finding characters like the "and it's gone" guy, or the, the redneck "they took our jobs" guy, or the side characters like Mr. Slave or Chef. And it's weird because I think like the main characters, Kyle, Kenny, Stan, Cartman, they get a lot less airtime in the newer South Park episodes, but they don't do as great of a job as they used to at bringing the side characters a memorable, hilarious personality like they used to. Anyways, Mr. Mackey's at the bank, and the "and it's gone" teller tells him that he's got an $8,000 nut, aka $8,000 in expenses. And Mr. Mackey's wondering, like, I'm unemployed, how am I supposed to pay all this? And the bank teller tells him that he could cancel all his streaming subscriptions, he could take out a debt consolidation loan, which is a really huge problem in today's age. Like, in 2024, the global public debt reached an all-time high of $102 trillion, $5 trillion more than it was in 2023. And they're showing the ridiculousness of how a working class man like Mackey is being suggested by the bank to take out a debt consolidation loan to keep up with his expenses. But that is really what's going down in today's age. The amount of debt that's been accumulating by everyday people is insane.
Now, we could get you a debt consolidation loan, cancel your streaming services, downgrade your phone subscription, do a second mortgage on your house, and your net's still $8,000.
And another thing that's really accurate about what's going on in today's age is the fact that the bank teller then suggests Mackey to join ICE. They then show a commercial for recruitment for ICE. And in this commercial, it shows that ICE will basically hire anyone. A dude in a psych ward, a pothead, even that really gross, greasy World of Warcraft character from back in the day. I like seeing him back in the mix again too, just like the bank teller. And the slogan for ICE is, if you need a job, it's a job to have. And this is obviously in reference to how much Trump has ramped up recruitment for ICE since he got into office, right? ICE is now backed by significant new funding through the bill that he passed, the One Big Beautiful Bill that he calls it. And because of that, ICE is recruiting through aggressive new ad campaigns for immigration agents, offering tons of financial incentives, like a $50,000 signing bonus, student loan repayment and forgiveness options. I'm not talking about South Park anymore. This is what they're offering if you want to join ICE in the real world. But in the show, Of course, with Mackey needing a job and the amazing benefits that ICE is bringing, this is the path he takes. Meanwhile, Clyde is taking the classic college campus liberal debate content strategy where you say something controversial like abortion should be banned and then you let people yell at you about it for content. Remember, again, Clyde doesn't care about these actual issues. It's all for engagement for him to make his nut money. Butters is the first one up to debate him, saying that Jews can't be bad people because they invented bagels and bagels are delicious. Clyde continues on with, generic modern day right-wing talking points. The Bible says there's only two genders, women and black people have it very privileged in America today, and Cartman jumps in and attacks him because Clyde essentially took our job. And Cartman's in full Charlie Kirk costume. Charlie Kirk, if you guys didn't know, is a right-wing podcaster who I believe is the originator of this style of content with the whole 20v1 debates, going onto college campuses to debate with all the students. Bebe even tells him that's the stupidest haircut I've ever seen. And then we get the catchphrase of the episode. Cartman says, if anyone's going to be a master debater, it's going to be me. And obviously, master debater sounds like masturbator. But it also ties into the whole I'm just doing this podcast to get my nut thing. Clyde right now is the master debater, doing it all for his nut. If you guys follow my hip-hop page, Rapaholics, this is what we would call a double entendre. Getting his nut is referring to both financial gain and sexual release, sort of like when you masturbate. He's becoming the master debater to get his nut. And together, the wordplay paints Clyde's controversial content creation as a form of performative self-gratification. He provokes outrage not out of genuine conviction for these beliefs, but to get off on the attention and the profit. They're satirizing influencer culture, where content creators gain pleasure out of building their clout through controversy and collecting cash off of it. And it's classic South Park, right? They're exposing this ego-driven, juvenile internet behavior through layers of filthy innuendo. He's doing this all to get his nut, which sounds like he's both seeking profit and, in slang, climaxing. The whole thing is just a layered play on words about self-serving, provocative online behavior. By Clyde being this controversial master debater to get his nut, he's literally being a jerk-off for views and money. You get it? A jerk off? And South Park here is exposing how huge this style of content of online debates is becoming within TikTok. You're seeing high schoolers become viral stars by debating right-wingers about the election. You're seeing Jubilee, the YouTube channel, make millions off of having one controversial guy in the middle of 20 different people, waving red flags to rotate who is going in to debate them. And South Park isn't just pointing out the fact that this whole thing is stupid, but it's how we live in a society so stupid where we're giving people who engage in this type of content full-fledged careers. It reminds me a lot of the early days when they were making fun of the whole streaming and reaction community. Like when Kyle was watching Ike, his younger brother, watch like reaction videos of other people playing video games, and he's wondering, why is my younger brother and his entire generation watching someone play a video game instead of just playing it themselves? It's kind of like the same thing here, right? Why are you watching someone else spew out these talking points when you could just go and do the research and form your own opinion? And meanwhile, Mr. Mackey, also needing to get his nut, but lacking Clyde's manipulative online skills, he resorts to something even more desperate, applying to work for ICE, despite being comically unqualified. And both characters are chasing their nut, their means of survival, and the nut is being chased through absurd, morally questionable, and humiliating paths. One exploits controversy for attention, the other compromises ethics for a paycheck. And that's where this episode draws a very clever parallel. Everybody's just trying to get their nut, whether by jerking people around online or selling out completely. So Mackey's sitting in on an ICE training presentation, and right away they start roasting the Department of Homeland Security Kristi Noem for shooting puppies, and that's not an exaggeration of real life. Kristi Noem had wrote in her memoir that her dog was untrainable and dangerous and decided that she needed to put him down because of that. So she led the dog to a gravel pit and popped it with a firearm. She said it was not a pleasant job, but it had to be done. And she defended her actions, saying that this is the reality of rural life. And in this ICE training, they also show her face melting off before a makeup crew comes in and completely redoes it. Which is hilarious, because I had no idea who this was before this episode, and I looked her up, and I'm like, she's kind of cute, but she's wearing like a ton of makeup. And then literally a minute later in the episode, her face falls off. Everything here is very accurate. And right after this training, which was all just Kristi shooting a bunch of puppies and putting back on her melting face, Mackey is now ready to be an ICE agent. That's all it really takes. Meanwhile, Cartman's on the toilet debating liberal college students over Zoom calls, and they do a great job representing what really goes down in these debates. The lines of questioning, the talking points, the arguments, the different topics. And Cartman's mom comes banging on the bathroom door to tell him to get out and stop master debating to college girls. And on another side note, I don't really love, like in recent seasons, how they've given Cartman's mom this tough girl approach. I liked it when they had to bring in Cesar Millan to train Cartman like a dog because he was abusing his mom so much. Like, she's just very whiny in my opinion lately, and they kind of force her to be a nag at this point. I think it opened the door for much funnier plot lines when she was an extreme pushover and Cartman was just able to do some absurd things because she was such a clueless parent. Now at this point, Cartman's like kind of afraid of her, right? And it takes away from the essence of his character.
Eric, that's enough. Let's get out of the bathroom.
I can't, Mom. I'm master debating to these young college girls.
That's very naughty, Eric. Stop it.
Like, I appreciate them for trying to kind of evolve Cartman, but I liked him when he was that evil, conniving, rage-fueled psychopath who was chopping up Scott Tenorman's parents and feeding them to him in a chili. Maybe I'm the psychopath. But meanwhile, Mackey, speaking of psychopaths, does his first ice raid at a Dora the Explorer concert. Kristen shoots more puppies that she sees in the audience, and her face falls off once again. And then they take things up a notch as they go on their next raid of illegal immigrants in literal heaven. And maybe that's a whole play on the idea that Trump is dating Satan, and obviously Trump is the one calling for all these deportations. So now they're deporting illegal immigrants who are in heaven. But anyways, Mackey feels guilty about this. He's apologizing to the immigrants, saying that he's just doing it for his nut. But he's doing such a good job that Christy actually says Trump is giving bonuses and Mackey will get one thanks to all the people that he's captured. And as she says this, her face falls off once again. Cartman and his mom then attend the Charlie Kirk award show for master debaters. Cartman thinks he's going to win the Best Young Master Debater award, and the prize is a trip to a 5-star resort. And remember that, it'll play a role very shortly. But Cartman doesn't win. Clyde does, and his speech more monotone than ever. He says Civil Rights Act, huge mistake. Lesbos are an abomination. And you could tell, again, he doesn't care about any of this stuff. He's doing it all for the nut. They award Mackey with a bonus for rounding up the most Mexicans. And he tries to justify that he's not just rounding up Mexicans, he's deporting people who aren't supposed to be there. But the problem is, the more money you start making, the more your nut goes up. AKA, there's never satisfaction when you're constantly chasing money or you're narrowly trying to escape poverty. And now the same 5-star resort that Clyde won a trip to for being the best master debater, Mackey also gets invited to that same resort for deporting so many Mexicans. And which resort is that? Lago. This, in my opinion, is the best part of the episode. We finally see the Trump character again, who comes out with a little Oompa Loompa minion, JD Vance, or like the meme version of JD Vance's balloon-type face. And along with Vance, Trump walks out with a bunch of young girls, almost like teenage girls. Trump asks Mackey what he wants as he greets him to the island, and Mackey says, well, even with my new high-paying job, I still have a huge nut. So Trump says, let's take care of your nut. And they walk into the bedroom where we see his boyfriend, Satan. JD Vance has baby oil ready to apply to Satan's butt, and this freaks Mackey out, so he tries to escape. And as he runs through the hallway, he's opening a bunch of different doors, and every door he opens has young women massaging old men, including Dora the Explorer, who's back again. I guess after she was captured by ICE, she's now at Mar-a-Lago massaging old men. And I'm sure you guys know the whole backstory of the famous island that Trump has been accused of being on that list on, allegedly. And you know what went down on that island? A lot of massages, a lot of old famous politicians and public figures go into that island for massages or maybe something a little more. What the hell do you think they're alluding to here? And they don't really go too deep into this entire Mar-a-Lago setting, but they're setting it up perfectly for tons of new stories to open up throughout the rest of the season involving not just Trump, but this entire, 5-star island resort full of old men getting massages. They alluded to this in the first episode where Satan's in bed with Trump and he's really upset because all his girlfriends were sending him Instagram posts showing that there's rumors of Trump being back on the Epstein list. And now we're seeing this resort with a bunch of young girls parading Donald Trump and a bunch of old men getting massages. Anyways, as Mackey tries to escape, he enters this room and he sees Clyde sitting there all alone, looking pretty upset. Clyde says, I just wanted my nut. I didn't really want all of this. And Mackey responds saying, we all have pressures and we want nice things, but if you're doing something you don't believe in just to make your nut, you're going to find your nut just gets bigger and you just get sadder. And again, it pretty much encapsulates the overall message of this episode, right? And it's here that Mackey also has the realization that he's got to stop chasing his nut. He's not a nice agent. He's a counselor at his core. But Mackey finds out he was supposed to be promoted to head of ICE, replacing Christy because Trump is scared of her face. And when she finds out, she pulls up to Mar-a-Lago too. Her face falls off and she scares all the old rich white people who are at the island. Mackey, Clyde, and Dora escape as the chaos is happening, and her face is just sliding through the hallway, causing mayhem, scaring everyone, until it returns back onto Christy. The episode then ends with Christy shooting up a pet store. And I think with each new episode, we're getting a little bit more of a development in the story of this new Trump character, right? Especially with this Epstein-style resort that Mar-a-Lago takes place in. It's leaving the door open for a lot of new plot lines for the rest of the season, and I'm guessing that's going to be a setting we see for the future of the show, along with whatever they have planned for Trump and his relationship with Satan. And they're centering it around this whole entire estate, the island of Mar-a-Lago, and Trump himself obviously being the villain of the series, right? Charlie Kirk gets a little stray, but it's kind of in lighthearted humor, and he actually responded to the episode saying he loves it, that it's an honor if South Park is not just kind of vaguely referencing your appearance or your character, but actually mentioning you by name. That's a whole different level of honor.
If they say your name, that's a big deal in South Park world. It's a whole different threshold if they say the name.
But he also says that he doesn't like how mean they were to Christy and to Trump.
The episode was very mean and nasty to people I like Christy Nome and JD Vance and Trump, but towards me, honestly, part of it was whatever, part of it was absolutely hilarious.
But yeah, again, Charlie Kirk, they kind of make him look like an idiot in the show, making Cartman be him, but they weren't digging at him the way they were digging at MAGA as a whole, right? Trump suing over everything, everyone being scared of him, but him having a tiny wiener, him being in bed with Satan, him controlling this entire estate that's very similar to, Epstein's Island, JD Vance being his little Oompa Loompa minion, the whole insane way they're overfunding ICE with these crazy bills, deporting people from Dora the Explorer concerts and literally heaven. This season has been very messy so far, and I can only imagine they're just setting up little Easter eggs that will all climax into one big nut of a storyline that will most definitely bring South Park into war with MAGA. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.